You are listening to the CADDle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CADDle Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CADDle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your witty and charming host, and with me, as always, is my partner.
It's the more charming one. It's Rocco.
Oh, apparently it's the one on drugs this morning, so we'll give him that. I'll let it go with that. But it's not going to save you, Rocco. You still have to suffer through the most important part of the show, which is the bad engineering joke of the week. All right?
Oh, no. I thought you'd spare the guests.
No, we have guests, and I'm going to torture them, too. Everybody gets to hear the bad engineering joke of the week. Ready? So here it is. So two engineers are having a conversation, Rocco. And an engineer, the first engineer says, "Hey, man, I bet you can't name two structures that can hold water." And the second engineer goes, "Well, damn." Huh? But I'm pumped. That's just an awful joke, but I love it anyway. Oh, goodness. All right, folks. So we have two of our favorite guests back on the podcast today. We have Tim Yarris, the Civil 3D Product Manager for Autodesk, and Ramesh Sridharan, the Product Manager for the Autodesk Infrastructure team. And we really appreciate both of you guys being back on the show with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here as always.
You guys are gluttons for punishment. You keep coming back. But yeah, Tim and Ramesh are here to help us answer the very important question that we all ask: what's the point of the point cloud? But before we get into that topic for today, let's kind of give our guests here a chance to reintroduce themselves to the audience. So let's start with Tim. Tim, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background and what you really do over there at Autodesk?
Thanks, Jim. So I don't have any jokes, so I'm just going to kind of just jump right in.
Apparently, neither do I, so it's okay.
Fair point. That's a fair point. Anyway, so I've been with Autodesk since 2006 in a whole bunch of different roles on the Civil 3D product team. So our product management team right now has a whole bunch of different folks on it who are responsible for advocating for the needs of all sorts of different disciplines. So disciplines like roads and highways and rail and recap and so on. And so as the product manager for Civil 3D, the product itself, I work closely with a lot of these folks and more importantly with customers and all these different disciplines to make sure that we have a good balance of making each of those disciplines as happy as we possibly can while we're still trying to keep an eye on where we want our products to go in the future. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. All right. So Ramesh, then your turn, sir. What does your job over at Autodesk entail, and how'd you get there?
I joined Autodesk about 8 years back or so on the infrastructure team. But like Tim mentioned, the PM role involves a good balance of the different aspects, working with exactly what Tim mentioned, but in adding to his words, considering the present and the future defects to fix, the features to fix, we need to just juggling between those things, find a good balance. That's one of the things we do. But we have a very good PM team in our Autodesk that helps us to keep that balance and let the thing accelerating on our side. And in addition to that, we have to work at the marketing strategy, legal, all those fun stuff too.
Oh, all the enjoyable things. Everybody loves working with the lawyers. Okay, so all right, so let's talk about today's topic, right? So point clouds, reality capture, laser scans, point cloud model recap, right? Reality capture. We've all heard the 100 different names for what it is. But it's all essentially the same thing. At least I think it is. The problem is not only are most of us confused by the myriad names, we're also confused as to the best ways to generate and import and use this type of data in our projects. Point clouds are becoming more and more vital, right? Particularly in the infrastructure space, right? Though I actually see they're really starting to show up everywhere nowadays. All right, so why don't we just start off here by defining what exactly it is we're talking about. So, Ramesh, what is reality capture, and how is it the same or how is it different from all the other titles that I just mentioned?
That's a good one, Jim. So technically, reality capture, well, as the name says, anything that captures reality. And it's not really, the point clouds are the new and a little bit more sophisticated way of capturing. But this concept is been there for a long time. If you just turn back on the history, let's say 30, 40 years back, even before that, I know there are a lot of surveyors. If the story goes, the surveyor actually measured the height of the Mount Everest so precisely, close to accurate. So it's been there for a long time, but it's a lot of work to do. Then once the things evolve, then we have an airborne based collecting the camera, the imagery, film based imagery came up. People started using it, printing it, and plotting it and using that. And then the photogrammetry ways of collecting a 3D information off of the imagery came in, and that's the digital image, all those things. They're all kind of reality capture because they are capturing the reality. But in 2000, just before 2000, 97, 98, this LiDAR was a fancy one that was always with the military. It became for the public. That's where the airborne LiDAR came in. Basically, airborne LiDAR is a fancy way of saying put the laser equipment, fly really high, like a 5,000, 10,000 feet or something, and collect the 3D data, and which was great. I can get the surface, maybe a meter, not a sub-meter, meter, 2 meter level resolution, but it gets the job done. And now it's a lot of points. I can actually get it done. And then the density and the sophistication of collecting gets better and better. That's where if you heard someone say terrestrial LiDAR, which is basically a fancy way of saying I have a sensor, I put in the middle of maybe inside that room or inside the building or even the intersections on the roads, I collect in that area. That's a terrestrial. And then somebody thought, well, if you want to put it, why can't I put it in the back of the truck and drive and collect it? That's a fancy way. And that's a mobile LiDAR. So things kept changing, adding more density, more resolution of the data. And that's where the industry really took off in the last 10, 20 years. And obviously, now everyone's on drone-based images and image-based photogrammetry. And now the latest one is backpack LiDAR. You can put in a LiDAR and backpack, walk around the buildings, and also drone-based LiDARs are popping up. So the fancy way of saying this is reality capture is really anything that captures reality, but what LiDAR does that is a little bit better and different than the other means is it gives you the 3D information quickly and gives you ability to capture a lot of data. Like for example, if I'm a surveyor, I have to really pick one point, one area and shoot it and get that information. Imagine I have just a wing, like a wand or something. I just do this, it collects a stream of data and I get the idea of the whole area and I can pick what I want instead of just spending too much time on focusing one area or something. That's a sophistication LiDAR gives. It's a great one, to be honest. In the last 2 decades, how the iPhone's era, I call it as an iPhone era, how the technology was in the last 20 years, and the technology side on the laser side, in this way, LiDAR side, this really brought up a good amount of data set, good amount of way to collect it, and now it's getting much cheaper as well, so it makes it more interesting for the industry.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, so Tim, let's ask this, right? What's the status of this cloud data, right? This LiDAR collected data in the Civil 3D updates. And I know you have a new update for Civil 3D that either just came out or is just coming out. Does reality capture figure into that? And what other cool tools can we expect from this update?
Well, as far as releases go, a couple things got shifted around a little bit as things do. We wanted to make sure our development team had enough time to really finish what they needed to do and thoroughly test it out before we shipped it off to customers. So with that said, we have a bunch of things that are newly available and other updates that are coming very soon. So first up is the Civil 3D 2022.2 and 2023.1 updates are available now. And we have a few others that you'll hear about in the very near future. But as for point clouds, we've got a solid presence for them in Autodesk Infrastructure workflows in general. Users can bring in large point cloud data using Recap, then process it to generate a terrain and other features in InfraWorks, and then the resulting features and terrain can directly come into Civil 3D for detailed design. And Civil 3D still has the ability to import point cloud data and generate surfaces, but the point cloud workflow really focuses more on what Civil 3D does the best, which is design. So the new updates don't really have a ton of new functionality specifically related to recap, but they do have a ton of great performance enhancements, pressure network modeling enhancements, and support for Civil 3D plane production workflows in the ACC environment. So hope that answers the question.
It does. It does. That's nice. Hey, look, performance is definitely something you need to have when you're dealing with large point cloud data. So, Rocco, let's wake you up for a little bit. So in terms of our clients here at Zentech, right, what level of need are you kind of seeing around, the LiDAR cloud-based reality capture stuff? Is it growing? Is it slowing? Or is it kind of staying steady as it has been over the past few years?
It's kind of slow and steady. I mean, I don't see many people asking about it. It's kind of like that cool thing that you want to kind of keep in touch with and see what's going on. But I think a lot of the larger firms are really looking to are utilizing that technology. But from what my discussions, day in and day out with folks, it's not a big thing. And I think part of the issue that's come up a number of times is just the ability to be able to process the point clouds and to have real good systems running. I think that's what a lot of folks have run into in my discussions with folks.
And that's fair, right? Like I said, like Tim was saying, you got to have solid processing capabilities and tools built around that, those large data sets, which I think that, the civil processes at AutoCAD are really working towards that, or at Autodesk, excuse me. All right, so, reality capture processes and concepts have been around for quite a while now, like Ramesh was saying, right? And while they're really remarkable in their capacity, right, there has been a lot of reluctance to delve too deeply into it by a lot of firms, and we're going to talk about that, right? But the thing that interests me most, though, is that over the last year or two, there has been, from what I've seen, a real surge in the amount of mainstream integration and documentation and adoption of these LiDAR and reality capture tools, right? For years, it's the coming trend. Like Rock said, we want to keep on top of it. Someday that'll be great. But now it seems to me on my side that a lot of that trend is now starting to become default operations in the larger infrastructure firms. So Ramesh, what's changed recently, right? Why are we hearing and seeing so much more about these reality capture tools now?
Sure. Multiple things change, Jim. The one is definitely the reality capture point cloud data itself. I really remember, this is even 15 years back when it was for the airborne, actually the mobile LiDAR. So we had a mobile LiDAR collected on the road, nice resolution data. We're talking in terms of centimeter, sub-centimeter level, and we can create a surface and create a contour, and the contour was bumpy because the road is bumpy. Yes, we don't see that when we drive it, but the road is bumpy. And someone was saying how good the contour we can create. Well, I can create a feet or half a feet. I mean, we are talking centimeters. So when you create not a low resolution, high resolution contours, and it's bumpy, and people are not used to see that. There's a term called cartographic level contours, right? It's a nice smooth, which we see in the posters and stuff. When you see the bumpy, we automatically think it's a noise, but it's not a noise. But even though it is not a noise, people understand that, but that contour is not serving their current workflow purposes because we need a real nice cartographic contours. So we end up creating a grid of 5 feet or something and then create the contours. Everyone was happy. Imagine collecting a centimeter level data and create a 5-meter grid. It's completely different. But I see their point because this is the new stuff that comes up and the workflows are established already. It takes time to change. I know iPhone, I keep calling us iPhone stuff, but it did happen overnight, but not that everybody bought the iPhone the same day. A lot of people actually, over time, they got it and get into the technology, right? The same concept here. At the same time, on the LiDAR side, when you first collect the data, when somebody says here, instead of 1 point, I can give it 1,000 points, I can give it 10,000 points, then the question comes how accurate it is. All those things come into picture. Yes, initially the LiDAR was not that accurate. So that kind of a little bit bear people down a little bit. Why should I use that much data when it is not accurate, when I already have established workflow? Those kind of a little bit of, the hesitations were in the beginning. But lately, like I said, the technology was booming. Now the accuracy of the data and the resolution of the data, all those things are getting much, much better. It is really good quality LiDARs the folks can create, like a Regals or the Leicas or the Pharaohs. A lot of sensors nowadays collecting data, and very cheap sensors also. I can get one for, I guess, like less than 5K or something like that, and I can get even drone. Now the drone-based collection, you can get information, you can collect it. So the ability to collect and ease of collecting and ease of creating the point cloud data, those are the things that changed quite a bit. And also the usage of it. I think you guys heard Autodesk has a recap software. A lot of other companies also have the softwares, but the recap was one of the pioneer software in the reality capture visualization. Even today, especially today, many companies use it for visualization because it's large point clouds. I can see it better. But that's where the whole thing comes into picture. More usage and ease of collecting, get my hands onto that is what the latest year happening that gave a big push in this industry, in my opinion.
And that's a fair statement, right? The more commonly it's used, the more people are exposed to it, the more likely they are to adapt it and keep using it. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. Okay. So Tim, right, whenever you're on the show, you always point out, right, your Autodesk Civil roadmap for our listeners. Can you explain that quickly again for anybody who maybe doesn't know what it is, and tell us about how, this concept of reality capture development, how is that laid out on your roadmap?
You bet. Love talking about the roadmap. So if you Google Autodesk Civil Infrastructure Product Roadmap, you'll find our public-facing roadmap for our full civil infrastructure product line. The roadmap's broken down into common industry themes like roads and highways, land dev, utility design, and recap. So there are cards for each item on that roadmap each of these items are under consideration. So you can click on those cards to get more information about each item, including whether they came directly from the Autodesk Ideas forums. We look up there all the time for hot items that customers are asking for. So, and also with a public roadmap, if you sign up for a free Trello account, you can vote for the items that you think we should focus on first. And we do look at that roadmap and the votes that are up there very frequently as we're trying to sort out what it is that we're working on next. There's actually a reality capture industry theme on the roadmap. There's a whole column for them, but it's a little bit different than the other themes. We initially thought that we would roll the recap ideas into the other industries like roads and highways, but then we quickly realized that the recap workflows, they span more than just one industry, and sometimes they span all the industries, really.
Yeah.
So almost all the items in the recap column on the roadmap, you can see that they could be used in different aspects and different workflows throughout the whole industry, really. So it's a separate category so that you can make it easy for customers to see what's under consideration in a more of a general sense for recaps. Ramesh, does that sound about right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, cool.
There you have it.
There you have it. So there you go, folks. The roadmap is always great. The idea that you get a direct input and you can vote on the things that are important to you, that's something that every Autodesk user should be getting involved with. So, I think when you get into the actual process of working with point clouds and reality capture tools, you immediately begin to see the massive benefit that they can have on every single one of your jobs. Reality capture provides a level of, detailed real world information in a very easy to visualize manner that we've never really had that before, right? And it seems like it should be a no-brainer to adopt it, right, for every design and build firm out there. But like we were saying, that really hasn't been the case, right? There's still some hesitation out there. So, Ramesh, if reality captures is great, as we're all saying on the show today, why do you think it hasn't seen a much wider adoption across the industry?
I know, it bugs me too. So actually, compared to last 5 years, I would say now the adoption has increased. Especially when Tim and I talk to customers day in and day out, every single project has a reality capture, one form or the other, one way or the other. And it's not just the private firms, even the Department of Transportations, and you take any public firms also who are a little bit hesitant on using LiDAR or the reality capture before. Now they're actually using on many projects. There are DOTs use drones to collect the assets on the intersections. Even before starting the work, they actually do that. So there is much more adoption nowadays compared to before, but it's still not as much as you want. Especially when you think about it, the smartphones and IoTs, when people talk about artificial intelligence and electric cars and all those things, if you still have to push on the point cloud data, it needs a little bit more adoption range going. But there's a reason to it. Every time I talk to this, maybe I said this on different podcasts before, this always reminds me of one of the examples my professor used to give. In 3,000, 4,000 years back, when an astronomer looks through a telescope around the sky, finding the stars, and he always say, I wish if I had a more powerful telescope to see that star clearly. Well, when you get it, you see that star clearly, but you see like thousands of other smaller stars now. And same thing, like now the James Webb, you can see all those things, but now you see more. So now more vague stars are available. So now you end up with lots and lots of data. You don't know how to deal with that. It's like you think before what you wish for, right? That kind of a thing. So now the point cloud gets you more data, large data. When I say large data, I'm sure you guys heard, everybody in this listening to podcast, I have one way or other experience, is gigabytes is old news nowadays. People talk about terabytes of data.
Yep.
Beyond, you know what I'm saying? So I've seen people actually, one of the customer made joke saying that I don't even need a chair. I can just sit on the hard drives. I store my data. That's enough for
It keeps you warm too.
Exactly. Yeah. So the thing right now is, there could be different reasons, but one of the core reasons, in my opinion, is the large data, speed of the data transfer, the data management related stuff, and how I can use it on my design software. I know today we're talking infrastructure, so we're talking Civil 3D and InfraWorks, things like that. The same applicable Revit, same on the manufacturing. Like Tim mentioned, the recap kind of spawns multiple in almost all the industry, to be honest. Even the movies, the funny part, every time I see a movie, what is that movie that Tom Cruise, every movie you actually see, there's the laser. I was watching Italian Job the last week, and actually the guy talks about that Napster talks about laser on the Italian Job movie. So it's in everywhere. But the thing is that having that large data handling capability and use it on their day-to-day workflow. You should not make that change their workflow. It should help them. That is where the small gap in the industry today. If I have to attribute your question on why it is seen a much wider adoption, I would say that as a key one. But industry is going towards that. Even Autodesk has a lot of tools we are working on going towards that. Once you patch it up, once you make it more available, then it will be a really, really great tool for every single project. People can use it. It's like saying, I'm sure, like I use the James Webb telescope. Once you have that image, somebody already sifted through and would give you to publish those images. You can post in Facebook and you can use it and you can brag about it. But you don't know how much work went on collecting that data and convert into the image you can see, right?
Right.
That part could be simplified, and that's where the catch is right now. But we are making a lot of progress.
There you go. And I think that's absolutely perfect, right? Once it becomes simple enough for people to just hit the big red easy button inside of their Autodesk product and say, process it for me, then you'll see the adoption everywhere, right? People don't want to learn how to do it themselves. They want it automated. So, all right, good. Excellent points. All right, so let's take a break here to listen to today's sponsor. And when we get back, I want to talk with Tim and Ramesh about Autodesk's future plans for kind of leading the charge in this reality capture world. All right, so stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the CADDle Call podcast. Hey, everybody. This is Jim and Rocco with ZenTech Consultants, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the training options that we have available here for you guys at ZenTech Consultants. We offer public training classes as well as private custom courses for all of your software and design needs. So, Rocco, why don't you tell the folks what kind of training we offer and how do they reach out to us to get it going for them?
Yeah, Jim, we cover everything from Bluebeam to Autodesk to Microsoft to BricsCAD to civil site design training and beginner through to advanced level topics. Like you said, both public and private courses. If you got a group and want to run a class specifically for your team, we can help you. So just feel free to hit our website. We're at zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK, or you can give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
There you go, Zentek Consultants for all of your technology training need. All right, everybody, welcome back to the CADDle Call podcast, where we're talking with Tim Yarris and Ramesh Sridharan of Autodesk, both product managers on the infrastructure side of the house. We're talking about the growth of LiDAR and reality capture. In this half of the show, I want to talk about Autodesk's long-term planning and development goals for this portion of our industry. Autodesk was really the first company kind of out of the gate in a big way when this tech first broke. But their development of it seemed to slow down for a while. It seemed like they were paying a lot more attention to it recently and really starting to develop some real great features around it over the last couple of years. So Ramesh, right? Reality capture, it all kind of falls under your purview for Autodesk Infrastructure. How is your group developing these reality capture tools for the future?
Absolutely. So yeah, Autodesk is one of the company started the reality capture kind of like a adoption thing in the software industry, especially on the design side, right? And we started with the reality capture visualization, which is a recap software. Then we actually added a lot of capability. Now, I mean, not now, at least 8 or 9 years back, you can actually bring in the point cloud data in Civil 3D and create surface. And then when I joined Autodesk about 8 years back, then we added some capabilities in InfraWorks to do the same thing in a slightly better way on creating surface as well on the workflow. And we added a lot of workflows on that aspect as well. And of course, reality capture, like we discussed in the first half, spans more than the infrastructure. So recap team was working on the indoors, the buildings, like a static collection, like a BLK, they work with the Leica sensors. So we've been making progress throughout the time on different aspects, and so we need to prioritize on different things. Now we are kind of back on the infrastructure side. That's the key here. So we have the workflows. Now we got the point cloud data and get the point cloud stuff. But when you talk to the customers, the one thing, like exactly we discussed last time, yeah, we see it. It's a lot of point cloud. I'm sitting on my hard drive. I need to pull one out and connect it. But can you make it better? And that's where it comes from now. So we are adding some of the feature extractions and better terrain generation capability in the recap itself. So some of those things that can go into Civil 3D and other products, obviously. And we're also focusing more on the streaming capability, point cloud streaming. Earlier this year, the recap actually released where you can publish enormous amount of point cloud data. The last thing I checked was about close to 300 GB on my testing, published into BIM 360 or ACC, and I can actually view it through my browser. It is funny. A couple of months back, I was in a customer meeting. I couldn't connect my laptop. So I pulled my iPad. I was demonstrating, connected to Zoom meeting. I actually showed the whole point cloud visualization in the browser on my iPad. And they were like surprised. And it's like this the same data, 300 GB data. So having this capability, literally in this case, on your fingertips and visualize, annotated, add notes on, and anything you do, the person or the folks in the office can actually see those changes and updates. That's the direction we started going. We already added the capability, and more is in the mill.
There you go. Yeah, the streaming is going to be huge. That's definitely, to my mind, the next big thing. You say the same thing. Yeah, I used to work, do a lot of work for surveying, and we were doing a lot of rail yards and LiDAR scanning of it. And the biggest difficulty that we faced was getting the data from the field back to the office for processing. We'd literally have guys running every night. We had couriers who would just run the data back and forth from the field to the office every day. So streaming is going to be huge. That's a great call. So, okay. So, Tim, all right. So, in general, all right. So, like Ramesh is talking about, the civil infrastructure side. And I know that's your kind of purview as well. But, in general, is Autodesk working to develop, these reality capture tools and softwares for other industries like, architecture and construction, the way that Ramesh's team is doing for the infrastructure side?
Oh, you bet. We're definitely doing that. So we've talked about a couple times, I think, over this conversation about how, a lot of these recap workflows kind of span different workflows across the civil infrastructure industry itself. So, you could use them in roads and highways and land dev, all that kind of good stuff. But then, it also can be used, I mean, across just industries. I mean, like architecture, construction, all that kind of good stuff. So it's like point clouds and the meshes that you're generated from the data can all go into products like Civil 3D and InfraWorks, of course, but I mean, they can still work in Revit, Navis, Maya, 3ds Max, Plant, you name it. So, I mean, the majority of what we're working on as far as like any kind of reality capture related tools that we have under development, and then also all the stuff that's on the roadmap for consideration for the future, we've all of them have our eye on those use cases that are cross industry. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I see it as a real important, growth venture as well. So, Rocco, along those lines, right? What are the industries, obviously other than infrastructure, where you're seeing the most interest around reality capture with our clients?
I think it's within architecture. Yeah, and that's probably the area. Not a ton in construction, but mostly within architecture, and some with some very, very small firms, and then some of the larger firms.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that as well on my end. You get a lot of the architectural firms, particularly ones who are doing, retrofit and renovation, to be able to go into an existing space and come out with, like Ramesh was saying, to a sub-centimeter scan that shows you literally everything that's, in the plan and behind the walls. That kind of stuff is crazy with what the potential is there. So yeah, I think it's big in architecture as well. So, I think an important part of adapting or adopting to new processes and technologies is always training, right? It's great to hear us all discuss these features here on the podcast, but at the end of the day, you need to know how to actually use them in your business, right? And there's always the option of going to a quality trainer like, like Zentek, who can help you out. But Autodesk always has its own learning paths available for all of their tools, which can be really helpful to get you started and help with, specific packages and processes along the way. So, Ramesh, what do you think is the best way for listeners to kind of get started and really begin that understanding of Autodesk's, reality capture tools?
Absolutely. Of course, the best way is with the Zentek, right? And the second best is...
Thank you for that.
And we have a lot of avenues also. Like, for example, there's a learning.autodesk.com. You can actually, there are a lot of materials available on all the products, especially on the reality capture and recap product and how to use it as well. We have separate YouTube channels for the recap as well as Autodesk Infrastructure. So how you can use the recap data into multiple products as well. And just in case if the audience doesn't know, though, I know I use the word recap a lot. We use the word reality capture a lot just to make sure they understand. Recap is the product name. So Autodesk has a product called Recap Pro, which is where you bring in pretty much any point cloud data. We support like tons of formats, so the odds of not supporting yours is very minimum. You can bring in, register them, prep them, clean them. In near future, you can even remove the noises automatically and flag them and prep it for your whatever work, like Tim mentioned, architecture or the construction or the infrastructure, any work. And we also have a recap photo, which is part of the Recap Pro. That's exactly where you can upload your drone images or even an iPhone image. I've seen people do that too. And you can set up your control points and click a button. It actually creates the point cloud data and the mesh and everything at the other end. So those are two main products. Once you have it, where you use it, completely depending on your workflow. It could be architecture, like I said. And the one I mentioned previously, you can even publish into BIM 360 and ACC for the cloud visualization, sharing, and all those stuff. You can do it. So that's where we are going.
So good place to head. Okay. All right, so Tim, I got my email invitation to Autodesk University not long ago, and I am sure that there are reality capture tracks available there. Are there any specific ones that you suggest? And while we're on the topic of AU, right, what other really cool things do you see going on there this year?
Good question. Yeah, so AU, late September this year, a little different. So as far as different is concerned, I mean, again, the theme of different with AU, I mean, since I've been in the product manager role, I mean, the AU experience is different than it used to be. It used to be going to classes and that sort of thing. But I mean, this role, I mean, it's less about going to classes for me, and it's more about kind of spending the day meeting with customers. I mean, it's such a great opportunity to really just kind of like connect with people. I mean, just all-way conversations, putting faces to names of people that I talk to every day, product briefings with key customers and that sort of thing. And so it's just a great opportunity to just really just connect with people. So, I mean, if you see me there, look at my name tag and please say hello. Love talking to people. Yeah. So, I mean, but as far as like organized events go, I mean, probably my favorite event that we do at AU is the Civil Infrastructure Technology Preview. We usually do that on Tuesday evening, and it's kind of a invitation only, kind of semi-secret, but not a really greatly kept secret event where
it can't be a really good secret if you're talking about it on my podcast.
Well, it's less of a secret now, even, because I mean, again, things are a little different this year, so this is me kind of breaking the secret and everything. But like, it used to be like an invitation only event that was kind of loose as far as the invitations were concerned. We'd pick people up over the course of the week, and it was like, hey, yeah, you should come join us tonight. And it was kind of a cool event because it was really like a beta launch and more of like hey, here's kind of the future of stuff that we're working on and kind of a sneak preview of stuff that's coming soon. It was kind of a cool thing because it was like the first like maybe 30 minutes of it were just us just kind of hanging out with customers, just mingling with the couple hundred people that were there, having a couple drinks and just kind of chatting and making new friends and stuff. The next 60 minutes it was generally all about, and this is still going to be the case, where it's just walking a couple hundred people in the room over kind of what's coming with the civil infrastructure products. It's not like a just death by PowerPoint, just like us reading from slides. It's kind of event. It's a really loose, fun event that we usually get a lot of really good feedback from our customers about it. It's a fun event. I mean, it's the whole product team and the product leadership team at Autodesk is all kind of up there on stage and kind of just showing off what we're doing and kind of giving some hints as far as what's coming in the near future. It's cool. I mean, the event's going to be a little bit different this year, and it's on Thursday, which is kind of weird. But we're still going to be doing our best to keep the spirit of the traditional event. So one of the things that, again, it's not invitation only. It's actually going to be open for registration in the general course catalog. So, I mean, with that, I think the registration for it opens up at the end of August, I believe. So, I mean, watch for details coming from AU in your inbox as far as that's concerned. And when you get that link, register, because we want to see more people there. Other sessions that I really like, aside from that, I mean, we do a whole bunch of different meetups that usually kind of traditionally take place in the expo hall. The civil session this year is called Meet the Experts on Civil 3D, Space Maker, and More. I think that one's on Wednesday at, I think, 9:30 in the morning. And Ramesh and I and a whole bunch of people from our product team, we're all going to be available to talk about really whatever you want. So, I mean, we'll be there. Just kind of hit us up and just bend our ear. You want to talk about sports or you want to talk about Civil 3D or recap, that's awesome. We'll talk about anything. So
nice.
Look us up.
There you go. Hunt these guys down, folks. They
right
need
on.
Somebody to talk to. They'd be bored out there otherwise. Nice. All right. So I guess, as always, whenever we have guests on, I like to give them the chance to drop some knowledge on me without guiding the conversation. So I'm going to ask you both to give us your best understanding, right, from the expert's perspective of where do you see reality capture moving in say the next decade? So Ramesh, let's start with you, right? What should listeners expect in the future of reality capture?
Sure. So I think we talked about a lot of what the reality capture is and the challenges and everything, right? But like with any technology, the technology can be really successful when user doesn't even realize they're actually using it. It just gels with it, helps them finish their job without going through extra out of the way to do it. And that's where reality capture will and should go in the industry. And it doesn't matter. It's a civil engineer or the construction engineer or even the construction process or the manufacturing. They should be able to use the reality capture data as a part of the stuff without carrying the baggage on, a lot of points. Is it accurate? Those kind of questions should be resolved in the beginning itself, and they can use it like a mesh. Tim mentioned that in his answer on how mesh can bring into the 3D Studio Max, Navis, all those workflow. That's something we added recently, by the way. So those are the things is where we are heading. We should be heading as an industry, and Autodesk is definitely having that as a part in our roadmap. And you already saw the twinkle, or what's the right way there? Breadcrumbs is the right way. You already see that there in the global launch. We have the Cloud Viewer, and we have our next release of the reality capture coming up just before EAU. Have some great features, and that's the direction we are moving. How to make this instantaneously useful for the customer so that they can continue what they are doing and without worrying about it. If I were to answer that in a slightly different way, we should not expect user to become a reality capture experts. Users are experts in their field. Reality capture should help them. If Apple comes and says the iPhone, you have to spend like a couple of months to understand how the iPhone works and then use it, nobody would have used it. So we do what we do, and iPhone helps us to do, or any smartphone for that matter. But you see where I'm going with that. So that this should help them to do what they want to do, not expect them to be expert and handle. That should be handled behind the screen. That's exactly where Autodesk is aiming towards.
Yeah, I think that's a right answer. Okay, so Tim, then same question for you, sir. Where do you see the industry going?
So the overall goal, in civil infrastructure design, and especially with our products, is all about accurate and flexible design, right? But you think about it, it's the old phrase of garbage in, garbage out. So that's where reality capture data really comes into the picture. It feeds the necessary details without the fluff that really lets designers get the best results possible. So, everyone in the industry should really become familiar with recap workflow so they can use it to its best ability in their work in the civil infrastructure industry, or really any other field for that matter. Workflows are evolving, as Ramesh mentioned. But designers can focus on what they're best at, and the product just helps them get things done more efficiently. So it's just good stuff.
There you go. Perfect answers. All right, so I think we can wrap it up there. As always, I really want to say thank you to Tim and Ramesh. I really appreciate you guys being here. You're outstanding guests and great friends of the show, and we always appreciate that you guys are willing to take the time to talk with two bold, silly podcasters. So thank you again, guys, for being here. Much appreciated.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Love being here.
All right.
Thanks.
Excellent, folks. All right, so we will get out of here, and we will catch you all next time on the CADDle Call podcast. All right, everybody. Today's CADDle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all.